Jesus came with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane. He said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." Jesus became very sad and troubled. Jesus went a little farther. He fell face down and prayed to God, "Father, if it is possible, take this suffering away from me, but only if it is part of your plan." Jesus came back and found the disciples asleep. Again, Jesus went away and prayed to God. And again, Jesus found his disciples sleeping. He said to them, "Get up. I'm going to be betrayed."
Suddenly Judas, one of the disciples, arrived. A large crowd carrying swords and clubs was with him. Judas kissed Jesus so the crowd would know who Jesus was. The men grabbed Jesus and arrested him. Peter pulled out his sword and tried to defend Jesus, but Jesus told him to stop.
Jesus' followers ran away, but Peter stayed nearby. A slave girl saw him and asked, "Aren't you one of Jesus' disciples?" "No, I'm not," Peter said. Twice more, as Peter waited to see what was happening to Jesus, someone asked him if he was a follower of Jesus. Peter denied it.
The men who arrested Jesus led him to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. The priests and high council were trying to find a reason to kill Jesus, but they could not. The high priest asked, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of God?" Jesus replied, "Yes, that's right." The high priest said, "Aha! He has blasphemed or spoken against God." Jesus told the truth, but Caiaphas and the council did not want to believe Jesus was God's son. They said Jesus was lying, but Jesus cannot lie. The crowd answered, "He deserves to die." They spit in Jesus' face and beat him.
The next morning, the chief priests and elders led Jesus to Pilate, the governor. "Are you the king of the Jews?" Pilate asked. "Yes, that's right," Jesus replied. The men accused Jesus of various crimes, but Jesus said nothing. "What should I do with Jesus the Messiah?" Pilate asked the crowd. They all answered, "Crucify him." He handed Jesus over to them and said, "Do whatever you want."
The governor's soldiers took off Jesus' clothes and put a scarlet robe on him. They made a crown of thorns and put it on his head. And they mocked him. "Here is the King of the Jews." Then they beat him and led him away to be killed.
The soldiers nailed Jesus to a cross. They put a sign above his head that said, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 criminals were crucified next to him.
From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness covered the land. Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Jesus shouted again with a loud voice, and then he died. Suddenly the curtain in the sanctuary split into 2 from top to bottom, and there was an earthquake. One of the men guarding Jesus' body said, "This man really was God's son."
That evening, Jesus was buried in a rich man's tomb cut into a rock. A great stone was rolled in front of the tomb so that no one could steal Jesus' body. 3 days later, on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. Suddenly there was an earthquake as an angel of the Lord came to the tomb. He rolled back the stone and was sitting on it. The guards were so afraid that they fainted.
The angel spoke to the woman, "Don't be afraid. I know you were looking for Jesus, but he is not here. He has been brought back to life, just like he said he would. In fact, he is going ahead of you into Galilee."
The women left the tomb quickly and with great joy. They ran to tell the disciples the news. Just then, Jesus met them. "Good morning," he said. The women worshiped him. "Don't be afraid," Jesus told them. "Go, tell my brothers to meet me in Galilee. They will see me there."
The crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus is the center of the gospel. We deserve to die because of our sin, but Jesus died in our place. He was the blood sacrifice made once and for all for the forgiveness of sin. God was pleased with Jesus' sacrifice and raised Jesus from the dead to reign as King over all creation. We are forgiven only through Jesus.